So tonight we're looking at Daniel chapter 5. If you have questions and comments along the way, just raise your hand and we should be able to address them. This is rather a short chapter, but y'all had led me to some other areas that I will share once we get to them. But tonight is very interesting, handwriting on the wall. And at times, Kim, if you don't mind, I may call on you to read certain parts just to help me out.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Glad to.
Okay. So the introduction is in our books on page 72, and it talks about Daniel chapter 5, describing the closing scenes of the Babylonian kingdom. Of course, that was the head of gold, and the transition of earthly power over Elohim's people. The earthly power was transferred to Medo-Persia. Of course, that's represented by the silver breast and arms of the image in Daniel 2. Daniel 5 also presents a picture of Babylon's indifference to the sacred trust and obedience required in the worship of the true Elohim. It also dramatically announces the message of doom and immediate judgment of Babylon. The fall of ancient Babylon also parallels the prophecies of the fall of spiritual Babylon in Revelation. So did you catch that? That last sentence was powerful. The fall of ancient Babylon also parallels the prophecies of the fall of spiritual Babylon in Revelation. Now that part applies to us in our day, and we will know the end from the beginning. So the book of Daniel is very pertinent to our end of days that we're experiencing today. The handwriting on the wall. Belshazzar, the sovereign, made a great feast for 1,000 of his great men and drank wine in the presence of the 1,000. While tasting the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the Hekal, the temple, which had been in Jerusalem, that the sovereign and his great men, his wives, and his concubines could drink from them. So Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar was actually Belshazzar's grandfather. Then they brought the gold vessels that had been taken from the Hekal of the house of Elah, which had been in Jerusalem, and the sovereign and his great men, his wives and his concubines drank out of them. They drank wine and praised the Elohim of gold and of silver, of bronze, of iron, of wood, and of stone. Okay, so the genealogy of Belshazzar is over here in the top right corner. Hold on just a second. I'm going to get a pointer that's a little bit more bold so you can see it. So we see Nebuchadnezzar here, and we see his descendants, these four right here. Evil Merodach, and then a daughter that married and Neriglissar and Nabonidus, and then we see Belshazzar. Okay. So on page 72 of your book, it talks about the holy vessels. And so I want to look at that together. Kim, do you have your book on page 72? Would you read the note under verse 1?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Uh, at this time in history, Nabonidus, father of Belshazzar, was away recuperating from an illness. During that time, Belshazzar was placed as co-ruler with his father over the affairs of Babylon. Therefore, Belshazzar was known as king of Babylon.
Okay, and there's several great verses that follow. It talks about Proverbs 20, verse 1. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. And we will definitely see that take place here in chapter 5. So again, it emphasizes that Belshazzar is actually the grandson of King Nebuchadnezzar. The word father is also understood to mean grandfather or ancestor. So this banquet introduces Belshazzar's ultimate disregard for the sacred holy vessels, which had come from Jerusalem's temple. The entire immoral company performed its wickedness by drinking wine from these sacred vessels. The following scriptures liken Yahweh's people to holy vessels of Yahweh's temple. So, you know how we were studying metaphors and similes? Well, this is a perfect example. I'll see if y'all agree that we're going to see that vessels are a metaphor for Yahweh's people. And Kim, if you would start reading those verses, Acts 9, chapter 9, verse 15, all the way through 2 Timothy chapter 2, 21.
Okay. So Acts 9:15. But Yahuwah said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me. And then Romans 9:22 and 23. What if Yahuwah, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory. And then 1 Thessalonians 4:4, that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor. 2 Timothy 2:21, if a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work.
Okay, so vessel is used as a metaphor to describe Yahweh's people and also people that will receive Yahweh's wrath. So vessels can refer to people. And then it's noted, Revelation 17 and 18 will describe the persecution of Yahweh's people or the misuse of Yahweh's holy vessels. So Yahweh looks at us as holy vessels. So Revelation 17 and 18 will describe the persecution of Yahweh's people or the misuse of Yahweh's holy vessels through the cruelty of spiritual Babylon. Spiritual Babylon will be judged for the abuse of these holy vessels. So no person can touch Yahweh's holy vessels and get and not be noted by him. They can't get away with anything if they touch Yahweh's holy vessels. And the same thing applies to us. As his holy vessels, we cannot mistreat others, but we are considered his holy vessels. In chapter 5, of course, we're going to see Belshazzar actually drink from the temple's holy vessels. But I thought that was a very interesting analogy because we had been studying metaphors, and that's a perfect metaphor. And why is it a metaphor and not a simile? Because a simile uses the words like or as. And so I just wanted to bring that out before we went further. Okay, now, sorry about my little circles here. I have no idea why they won't line up, but what I was circling was in Daniel 5:3. It has, let me see, you have noticed when we have been studying the book of Daniel, and I'm using the scriptures 2009, it uses Yahweh's name of Elah or Elohim, right? And some of you may have been wondering why that was. Well, does anyone know why that was? And I mean, it's up on the screen, so you may have already read it. But the book of Daniel is written in bilingual language. And not only is the book of Daniel written in bilingual language, so is the book of Ezra. So both of these books in Yahweh's word are written in Aramaic and Hebrew. So why Aramaic beside Hebrew? The most striking linguistic peculiarity of the book is its bilingual composition. As it is known, the introductory chapter and the first verses of the second one are written in Hebrew. Then, after the mention that the Chaldeans answered the king in Aramaic in Daniel chapter 2, verse 4, not only is their reply rendered as natural in Aramaic, but the text keeps on the Aramaic track down to the end of chapter 7, resuming afterward to Hebrew for the chapters 8 through 12. So I wasn't sure if y'all were aware of that, but that is why instead of seeing Elohim, you see Elohim, or instead of seeing Eloah, you see Elah. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Did most of y'all know that? So Aramaic was a very prominent part of Babylon. Now I just put in here Daniel chapter 9, verse 4 as an example how it switches over. And it says, and I prayed to Yahweh, my Elohim, and made confession and said, oh, Yahweh, great and awesome El, guarding the covenant and the loving commitment to those who love him and to those who guard his commands. So you see the switch. Now it's referring to Elohim as Elohim and to Elah as El. So that's why you see the change in references there. So I just wanted to take time out to bring that to everyone's attention. Okay, Kim, would you like to read verses 5 through 9?
Mm-hmm. At that moment, the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the sovereign's palace. And the sovereign saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the sovereign's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him, so that the joints of his hips were loosened and his knees knocked against each other. The sovereign called loudly to bring in the astrologers, the Kasdim, and the diviners. The sovereign spoke and said to the wise ones of Babel, whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation is robed in purple and has a chain of gold around his neck and shall be the third ruler in the reign. So all the sovereign's wise ones came, but they were unable to read the writing or to make known its interpretation to the sovereign. Then sovereign Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his great men were puzzled.
So he gave the command, the sovereign called loudly to bring in the astrologers, the Chassidim, and the diviners. And then he made a decree. Whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation is robed in purple and has a chain of gold around his neck and shall be the third ruler in the reign. So they were not able to read the writing, nor were they able to know its interpretation. Again, Daniel is divinely placed in his position during this time of exile to be a witness to these kings and to also point this pagan nation to the one true living Elohim. Okay, Kim.
The sovereignness, Belshazzar's grandmother, the sovereignness, because of the words of the sovereign and his great men, came to the banquet hall. And the sovereignness spoke and said, O sovereign, live forever. Do not let your thoughts alarm you, nor let your color change. There is a man in your reign, in whom is the spirit of the set-apart Elohim. And in the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the Elohim, were found in him. And sovereign Nebuchadnezzar, your father the sovereign, made him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chassidim, and diviners, because an excellent spirit, knowledge, and understanding, interpreting dreams, and explaining riddles, and solving difficult problems were found in this Daniel, whom the sovereign named Belteshazzar. Now let this Daniel be called, and let him show the interpretation. So Daniel was brought in before the sovereign. The sovereign spoke and said to Daniel, Are you that Daniel, who is one of the sons of the exile from Yehuda, whom my father the sovereign brought from Yehuda? I have heard of you, that the spirit of Elohim is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you.
Okay, so Belshazzar's grandmother told him about Daniel. And so that there is a man in your reign in whom is the spirit of the set apart Elohim. So I want also for everyone to be aware that Belshazzar's name is rather similar to Belteshazzar, but they're two different names. So just make a note, the Babylonian name given to Daniel was Belteshazzar, and it is different than the name of King Belshazzar. So I just wanted to bring that out in case people were wondering why this name is so similar. So we see Belshazzar in this genealogical chart up here, and we see Daniel's name, Belteshazzar, here. So we continue. Kim?
And the wise ones, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they were unable to show the interpretation of the word. And I myself have heard of you, that you are able to give interpretations and to solve difficult problems. Now, if you are able to read the writing and make known its interpretation to me, you are to be robed in purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the reign. Then Daniel answered and said before the sovereign, Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Yet I shall read the writing to the sovereign, and make known the interpretation to him. O sovereign, the Most High Elah gave Nebuchadnezzar, your father, a reign and greatness and preciousness and esteem.
And so Nebuchadnezzar returned to his throne, but eventually he was gathered to his fathers, and a series of new kings came to the throne, none lasting more than a short time.
You're about to tell about the downfall of Babylon, are you not?
I am.
Well, at last we come to the part of the tale where I have some knowledge to share. For though I had conquered from east to west, Babylon was the last to resist me, and I dreaded its siege. For Babylon's wealth had allowed her to lay in enough grain to last for years, and her towers, walls, and gates were so formidable that even untrained men could defend them with ease. Walls too high to scale, with parapets wide enough for chariots to patrol them, and a river-fed moat to cross before even getting there. It was enough to freeze the heart of even an old soldier such as I am. Then one night as I lay on the ground, courting sleep that would not come, a thought came to me. From whence it came, I do not know. Like some spirit of God whispered it in my ear. But the river Euphrates, which flowed down to Babylon, raised above its natural level, hemmed in by dams and dikes. But if dams were opened full and the dikes were broken, the river, which ran straight through the heart of the city, would fall to nothing. An army poised and ready to strike could march into the city on its dry riverbed, underneath the gates designed to repel ships when the river was at its normal level. And I suddenly realized I'd been given a key to defeat the mighty Babylon. It was as though in all the world, throughout all of history, I was the only one that had the thought. All it required was the right moment to act.
A night when every man in Babylon, from the least to the king himself, would drink himself ill in honor of their gods, who were naught but worthless idols and could not protect them. Listen, O king, and I will tell of the second king of my story, Belshazzar, king of Babylon, both foolish and wicked, of equal measure.
Enough! We still have our threefold walls with their battlements. And within our granaries, we have grain enough to endure a siege of 10 years.
Our watchmen have seen the Persians digging, my lord.
They seem quite concerned about this, my king. Yes, they will look to build a siege ramp against the city. But first, they must build a causeway across the moat. That alone will take months. In the meantime, let us feast and toast Marduk, the patron god of Babylon. Marduk! These cups have a taste, and I will not have it so. Bring me the golden vessels from the Temple of Jerusalem.
But my king, is it wise to use the vessels?
My king, these cups are considered sacred. Are they not, my king?
Perhaps in Jerusalem! By that pathetic desert deity of Judah. But here they are spoiled for our gods. And they would have me use them as I see fit. Bring them!
Now listen.
Yes. You see these vessels? In Jerusalem, they were used for the worship of their god. Now, instead of the blood of bulls and rams, let them flow with foaming wine. For I am not a devourer of blood. I am a devourer of drink. And choice fare. To Marduk, the god of our city. Marduk! And to our idols of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone, partake of our pleasures and protect our city. Whoever reads this and tells me what it means shall be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around his neck and be made third highest ruler in the kingdom.
And all the king's wise men came in, but they could not interpret the inscription or tell the king what it meant. So Belshazzar became even more terrified.
The Judean once told Nebuchadnezzar, your forefather, of his dreams. He succeeded when everyone else had failed. This man, Daniel, whom the king called Belteshazzar, he could tell you what this writing means.
Does he still live?
He does.
Bring him to me quickly, but do not harm him. We shall soon learn if this Hebrew can do as you say.
Nothing, it would seem, is too sacred not to be profaned under the influence of wine.
Nothing, okay. How can I be of service, Highness?
Are you Daniel? One of the exiles my father brought back from Judah?
I am he.
I am told you are able to give interpretations and solve difficult problems. If you can read the writing on that wall, you will be clothed in purple, have a chain of gold placed around your neck, and be made third highest ruler in the kingdom.
Long ago, I told your forefather, Nebuchadnezzar, that I would speak to him only the truth, and that if he rather not hear it, he should ask me nothing. Perhaps it would be better if you asked me nothing.
No. It is unseemly for a king to be baffled by a message in his own hall. No human hand has scribed it. No other tongue can interpret it. Tell me what it means. Be it for good or ill.
Okay. The Most High God gave your father Nebuchadnezzar greatness and glory. But when his heart became arrogant, he was deposed from his throne and stripped of his glory, until he acknowledged that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men. Even though you knew all this, you should have appealed to him. Instead, you set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets of his temple brought to you and praised the gods of bronze and iron, wood and stone instead of him. These vessels were made for the service of the Most High, and you have used them to pour wine for your harlots? Would you humble the Almighty by desecrating his possessions? Would you bind him like a captive and beat him like a slave? Would you pluck out his eyes and have him beg for scraps of food beneath your table? This you would do if you could, and the Almighty knows it. This is his answer to you. The Lord God will strike you down like an enemy. For he has bidden his angel to unsheath his sword. These, then, are the words he has written. Nay, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the scales and found wanting. Sin. Your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. This very night, your life will be demanded of you, and before the sun rises, your flesh will grow cold. Thus saith the Lord, your line is ended, your rule is over, your kingship is no more.
Is there nothing to be done?
No. In your arrogance, you have doomed not only yourself, but your house, your line, your inheritance, your city, and your kingdom. Choose now where you will spend your last few hours, but knowing your fate, who now will love thee? Who now will fear you? Will the least of your slaves comfort you, or will they desert you, seeking to avoid the fate which is yours?
Let it be as I have commanded. Let this man be clothed in purple, a chain of gold placed around his neck. For I am not dead yet.
I am King Belshazzar of the Babylonian. Unharm me!
Surrender or die!
Never!
Send word to Cyrus the city's taken in his name. As he has commanded, I shall assume the crown. You know who stands before you?
You are Darius, a Medo-Persian, uncle and father-in-law to Cyrus, who has, by stratagem, taken this city. By right of conquest, you are now her king.
Yes. And you're an official of Babylon. Why should I not kill you?
It is true I served Babylon in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, whom I served truly and well. But her latter kings I did not serve until tonight.
How is this possible?
It is a reward for letting Belshazzar know that you were about to take the city.
Who told you? Have we a traitor in our ranks?
It was revealed to me by my God, who sent his angel to scribe the writing on that wall.
It is true. He read the inscription and revealed the message. He told the king that he would die this very night.
Though brought here as an exile in my youth, by birth, I am a Hebrew from the kingdom of Judea, and I serve the God of my forefathers. The Most High reveals to me what he sees fit.
Am I to believe your God revealed my coming to you?
If I was to lie, would this be the lie I would choose? Who else could have revealed your deepest secret and known ahead of time that you would succeed, or known with certainty that you would slay Belshazzar? And how could you have done so if the Lord had not decreed it? For is it not by the hand of the Most High that both victories and disasters come?
I would have you put this gift of divination in my service. Yet how do I know I can trust you, Hebrew?
I will speak to you honestly, my king. And when you would not hear the truth, you must ask me nothing.
Okay, so that last scene, he's talking to Darius, and King Cyrus and King Darius, they were conquering different areas of Babylon. And like was mentioned in that little clip, Darius was the uncle to King Cyrus. So I just wanted to point that out. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to make sure we're all clear on is the association of Belshazzar to Nabonidus. And we had read on page 72 that note that at this time in history, Nabonidus, and again, it's in parentheses, was the father of Belshazzar, was away recuperating from an illness. During that time, Belshazzar was placed as co-ruler, or sometimes they are referred to as co-regent, with his father over the affairs of Babylon. So in essence, they were both ruling Babylon. So therefore, Belshazzar was known as king of Babylon while his father was away. And then if you notice on page 73, it says third ruler. It says Nabonidus was the first ruler. Belshazzar was the second ruler, meaning co-regent. Therefore, the person that provided the interpretation, which we just saw was Daniel, could not have a position higher than the third ruler. And so that's what Belshazzar told the person that could interpret the writing would have that position. Okay, all right. Kim, would you like to read 19 through 22, please?
And because of the greatness which he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whomever he wished, he killed, and whomever he wished, he kept alive, and whomever he wished, he raised up, and whomever he wished, he made low. But when his heart was lifted up, and his spirit was so strong as to act proudly, he was put down from his throne of reign, and they took his preciousness from him. Then he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. He was given grass to eat like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of the heavens, till he knew that the Most High Elah is ruler in the reign of men, and he sets up over it whomever he wishes. And you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all this.
So we are clearly seeing in the book of Daniel how pride is a very serious flaw to have before the one true living Elohim. a very serious flaw. And so we saw that in Nebuchadnezzar, and we saw that in Belshazzar, but we also saw it in the kings of Judah right before their exile, when Jeremiah was prophesying to them. So we know pride comes before the destruction of the southern house of Judah. They didn't heed warning. They were listening to the false prophets and the diviners and all these others, but they were not listening to Jeremiah, the prophet sent to them by Yahweh. So they did not heed his warnings. And this was a cross-reference scripture to Daniel 5:19, Jeremiah 27 verse 6. And now I, speaking of Yahweh, have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the sovereign of Babel, my servant, and the beast of the field I have also given him to serve him. And all nations shall serve him, and his son, and his son's son, until the time of his land comes. And then many nations and great sovereigns shall make him serve them. So Yahweh gave the house of Judah into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. Okay, Kim.
And you have lifted yourself up against the master of the heavens. And they brought before you the vessels of his house, and you and your great men, your wives, and your concubines have been drinking wine from them. And you have praised the Elohim of silver and of gold, of bronze, of iron, of wood, and of stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor know. But the Elah, who holds your breath in his hand and owns all your ways, you have not made great. Then the part of the hand was sent from him, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed: Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin.
Okay, so we saw the word then. So when, it was right then, at that moment, Yahweh pronounced judgment on Belshazzar with the handwriting on the wall. And that's where we get that old cliche, you know, the handwritings on the wall. So we get a lot of these sayings from the Bible itself. And if you're not asking a question, go ahead and mute your mic. Sometimes we get some static feedback. And in verse 26, it said, this is the interpretation of each word. Mene, Elah has numbered your reign and put an end to it. So it meant numbered. And in verse 27, Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found lacking. So Yahweh had weighed Belshazzar. And lastly, your reign has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave orders, and they robed Daniel in purple and put a chain of gold around his neck, and they proclaimed concerning him that he is the third ruler in the reign. In that night, Belshazzar, sovereign of the Chaldean, was killed. So if you look on page 79 in your book, about the lower half, it notes, the fall of the ancient capital city of Babylon was a brilliant execution of military strategy. The broad walls of the city appeared impregnable. The city was self-supporting and apparently seemed eternally secure from attack. The Euphrates River ran through the city, supplying water for gardens that were a quote-unquote river of life. This river ran through the entire length of the city. Walls of great height and thickness protected the perimeter of the city and bordered both sides of the riverbed. Huge gates of brass were in these walls by the river. No one could enter the city of Babylon when these brass gates were closed and guarded. But on that fatal night, the gates were not shut as foretold in Isaiah 45:1. Darius the Mede, the uncle of Cyrus, captured Babylon in one night. So those are some pictures I just inserted so you could get an idea of how the river Euphrates in that top right photo, how that huge river ran through Babylon. So it seemed to be secure. It seemed to be impregnable. However, when Yah has lifted his hand of protection, it is lifted. And we saw how Babylon was taken pretty much without a fight. So it's also connected to prophetic key number 12. Prophecy is understood near or at the time of fulfillment. Once the Babylonian king was slain, it was obvious that prophecy had been fulfilled. And Darius the Mede took over the reign, being about 62 years old. So now if you turn to page 80 in your book, we read Jeremiah 51, verse 30, 39, 57, and 58. Let's read that, and then I want to read the note on that lower page too. Kim, go ahead and read Jeremiah 51, 31, those verses right there.
One post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon that his city is taken at one end. In their heart I will make their feasts, and I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice and sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake, saith Yahuwah. Verse 57, and I will make drink her princes and her wise men, her captains and her rulers, and her mighty men, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake, saith the king, whose name is Yahuwah of hosts. Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, the broad walls of Babylon shall be utterly broken, and her high gates shall be burned with fire, and the people shall labor in vain, and the folk in the fire, and they shall be weary.
Okay, so Yahweh brought it about to where they would not be suspecting. They became drunken. They let their guard down, and Babylon was taken. And it didn't matter how great the walls were. It didn't matter how big the moat was. If Yahweh has lifted his hand of protection, that nation will fall. Now, the added note there on the bottom of page 80, it reads, Darius the Mede, a 62-year-old military genius, brought the troops of Cyrus to Babylon. He commanded them to dig a lake bed beside the city and then channeled the water away from the city of Babylon into the lake bed, causing the river to dry up. Then at midnight, as Belshazzar desecrated the holy vessels at his banquet, Darius's troops marched through the dried up riverbed. I mean, that was pretty brilliant right there. Darius entered Babylon through the two levied gates that were left open and took the city. The drying up of the river Euphrates brought about the final fall of ancient Babylon. The drying up of the Euphrates River in Revelation 16:18 parallels the fall of that ancient city, Babylon. So we see so many connections to the book of Revelation. So Darius the Mede entered through the open Ishtar gate in Babylon. Amazing. So this map is on page 81. And Kim, if you read it, I'll just kind of point out some of the positions where everybody where they were at.
Okay. Cyrus the Great, you want me to read the interesting information there?
Yes, please.
Okay. Cyrus the Great, the Persian king, rose to power very quickly by taking over the kingdom of Media and Lydia in their far west. This alarmed Nabonidus, and he returned to Babylon from Tema in 540 BC. On the way back, he surrendered Zippor to Cyrus on October 10th, 538 BC, and fled south.
Okay, so Nabonidus, and we all pronounce a little bit different, but y'all know what we're speaking of. So it says, this alarmed Nabonidus, and he returned to Babylon from Timnah. So here's Timnah, and on the way back to Babylon, we see Zippor right here. And that looks to be just north of Babylon, which it is. I mean, we just read that, 50 miles north of Babylon. And he surrendered Zippor to Cyrus. And so now, in the meantime, continue, Kim.
In the meantime, Darius, king of the Medes, proceeded south to Babylon and overtook the city on October 12th.
Okay, so we have Cyrus connecting to Nabonidus here in Zippor, and in Babylon we have Belshazzar, the second co-regent, dealing with Darius. So you see how King Cyrus and Darius were working hand in hand in conquering Babylon. Okay.
Darius the Mede, also known as Cyaxares, was the uncle to Cyrus the Great.
And Cyrus allowed Darius the Mede title to all of his conquest as long as he lived, because we've already established that Darius the Mede was uncle to Cyrus. And we know he only served for a couple of years. In that last bullet point, it says Darius the Mede ruled in Babylon only 2 years before he died. Cyrus then ruled over Babylon and made provisions for the Jewish people to return to their homeland. And we saw last week the connection on those commemorative coins of King Cyrus and President Trump. So very interesting correlations to this ancient kingdom, and we see it connecting to Mystery Babylon today. So that's worthy to note. Then in the right lower quadrant of the screen, you see the new city and the inner city and the outer city and so forth. So you see also the Ishtar gate there. Okay, so I wanted us to know a little bit about the Ishtar gate. And so I had just looked this up, and I wanted us to read through this to kind of bring this Babylon that we're studying about to our present day to see the connections. So the Ishtar Gate was constructed by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, 575 BCE. It was the 8th gate of the city of Babylon in present-day Iraq and was the main entrance into the city. The Ishtar Gate was part of Nebuchadnezzar's plan to beautify his empire's capital, and during the first half of the 6th century BCE, he also restored the temple of Marduk. Now, we heard them praising Marduk or Marduk in the little movie clip, and built the renowned wonder, the Hanging Gardens, as part of this plan. The magnificence of the Ishtar Gate was so well known that it made the initial list of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. However, it was later replaced by the Lighthouse of Alexandria, but some authors wrote that the gates of Ishtar and walls of Babylon should still be considered one of the wonders. The Ishtar gates and deities. The Ishtar Gate is named so because it was dedicated to the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. Of course, the goddess Ishtar is where we get the term for the pagan holiday of Easter, Easter and Ishtar, the fertility goddess. So the Ishtar Gate is named so because it was dedicated to the Babylonian goddess Ishtar, although Nebuchadnezzar pays homage to other Babylonian deities through various animal representations. The animals represented on the gate are young bulls, lions, and dragons. These animals are symbolic representations of certain deities. Lions are often associated with Ishtar, bulls with Adad, and dragons with Marduk. Respectively, Ishtar was a goddess of fertility, love, war, and sex. Adad was a weather god, and Marduk was the chief or national god of Babylon. Materials and construction. Kim, would you read that part?
The front of the gate is adorned with glazed bricks with alternating rows of dragons and bulls. The beasts are furnished in yellow and brown tiles, while the bricks surrounding them are blue. The blue enameled tiles are thought to be of lapis lazuli, but there is some debate to this conjecture. The gates measured more than 38 feet high, with a vast antechamber on the southern side. Through the gatehouse is the processional way, which is a brick-paved corridor over half a mile long, with walls over 50 feet tall on each side. The walls are adorned with over 120 sculptural lions, flowers, and enameled yellow tiles. The processional way was used for the New Year's celebration, through which statues of the deities would parade down, and the path paved with red and yellow stones, rows of red stone on the outer layers and a yellow row in between. Each one of these stones has an inscription underneath a small prayer, a small prayer from King Nebuchadnezzar to the chief god Marduk. It was this processional way that led to the temple of Marduk.
Okay, so we know that King Nebuchadnezzar worshiped his little g gods, but we also know that toward the end of Nebuchadnezzar's life, it appeared he had changed. It appeared he actually recognized the one true living Elohim. And as I shared before, Chuck Missler even stated in one of his sessions that he believes that that one day he would meet Nebuchadnezzar, probably in heaven, and possibly they have met. So this is the reconstruction that has been done to the gate of Ishtar that's in the museum. And this is the processional way. And like Kim read, it was over half a mile long with walls over 50 feet tall. And a lot of sculptures, lions, flowers, and enameled yellow tiles. So the dedication plaque on the Ishtar gate, there is a dedication plaque written from Nebuchadnezzar's point of view that explains the gate's purpose and describes it in some detail. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, the faithful prince appointed by the will of Marduk, the highest of princely princes, beloved of Nebu, a prudent counsel, who has learned to embrace wisdom, who fathomed their divine being and reveres their majesty, the untiring governor who always takes to heart the care of the cult of Escalgila and Ezida, and is constantly concerned with the well-being of Babylon and Borsippa the wise, the humble, the caretaker of Escalgila and Ezida, the firstborn son of Nabopolassar, the king of Babylon. Both gate entrances of Imgur Elel and Nepeti Elel, following the filling of the street from Babylon, had become increasingly lower. Therefore, I, meaning Nebuchadnezzar, pulled down these gates and laid their foundations at the water table with asphalt and bricks, and had them made of bricks with blue stone, on which wonderful, according to him, bulls and dragons were depicted. I covered their roofs by laying majestic cedars lengthwise over them. I hung doors of cedar adorned with bronze at all the gate openings. I placed wild bulls and ferocious dragons in the gateways, and thus adorned them with luxurious splendor, so that people might gaze on them in wonder. I let the temple of Sisker, the highest festival house of Marduk, the Lord of the gods, a place of joy and celebration for the major and minor gods, be built firm like a mountain in the precinct of Babylon of asphalt and fired bricks. So what an elaborate effort that they made to the little g gods. And are we willing to do for the one true living Elohim, which others are willing to do for little g gods? I mean, look at how elaborate they worship their little g gods. So again, the question is, are we willing to do for the one true living Elohim what others are willing to do for little g gods of woods and stone? And this was probably at the peak of Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. This was probably as he was looking out over his kingdom, saying, look what I have done. Look at this great nation I have built. And we know that Yahweh comes against him. Okay, Kim.
The Ishtar excavation and reconstruction. The Ishtar Gate was excavated between 1902 to 1914 CE, during which 45 feet of the original foundation of the gate was discovered. The material excavated by Robert Coldaway was used in a reconstruction of the Ishtar Gate and the processional way. In 1930, the reconstruction was finished at the Pergamum Museum in Berlin, Germany. Due to size restrictions at the Pergamum Museum, the Ishtar Gate is neither complete nor its original size. The gate was originally a double gate, but the Pergamum Museum only utilizes the smaller frontal part. The second gate is currently in storage. Originally, the gate had a door and roof made of cedar and bronze, which was not built for the reconstruction. A smaller reconstruction of the Ishtar Gate was built in Iraq under Saddam Hussein as the entrance to a museum. However, this reconstruction was never finished due to war. There are several museums in the world that have received portions of the Ishtar Gate. The Istanbul Archaeology Museum, the Detroit Institute of Art, the Royal Ontario Museum, the Louvre, Munich's State Museum of Egyptian Art, New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Oriental Institute of Chicago, and many others.
Okay, so at the very end of this write-up, it spoke of the author of this piece. Her name was Brittany Garcia. Brittany is a freelance writer. I was reading this and it said, Brittany is a freelance writer and classical Latin and ancient Greek tutor. She maintains a personal blog and Facebook page about on news of the ancient world. She is a volunteer Latin translator for the IRIS project with NASA's quote unquote, making Mars speak Latin. Well, of course, I couldn't leave that alone. I wasn't familiar with the IRIS project, and making Mars speak Latin, I really didn't understand that. So it led me on a little journey. So the rest of tonight's session, I want to take y'all on that journey and see connections to our present day. So it talked about the IRIS project is excited to have been invited to take part in the NASA High-Rise project run by the University of Arizona's Lamar and Planetary Laboratory. The High-Rise camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is the most powerful one of its kind ever sent to another planet. Its high resolution allows us to see Mars like never before and helps other missions choose a safe spot to land for future exploration. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory division of the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena, California, manages the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter for NASA's Science Mission Directorate. Washington Lockheed Martin Space System is the prime contractor for the project and built the spacecraft. The high-rise camera was built by Ball Aerospace and Technologies Corp. And is operated by the University of Arizona. The high-rise team has created an innovative approach with the High Translate project, a call for volunteers to help translate over 1,300 captioned images into as many languages as possible. We've been fortunate enough to have been asked to produce the Latin translations using a team of volunteers who work with IRIS. I mean, even the name, the IRIS project, is very interesting because, of course, it makes me think of the Eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye at the top of the pyramid on our dollars and so forth and so on. Alongside this, IRIS is also creating an outreach project, quote unquote, making Mars speak Latin. So in essence, they're translating all of these things in the various languages. And I guess this aspect of it was focused on Latin, which will engage schools and communities in this exciting project merging classics and science. This will involve monthly meetings for interested people to come and find out about the project and how it's progressing, as well as talk to schools about the project with an opportunity to engage in the scheme. But that was interesting. If you would like to join our team of translators, please get in touch with us at such and such. Okay, so that I read, and of course that's the website to the University of Arizona High Rise, and this was just the search I did that brought up making Mars speak Latin, and then I saw IRIS, and it was connected to EO portal directory, satellite missions, and so forth and so on. So I clicked on a few of these cross references, and it talked more about IRIS. Will provide key insights into all these processes and thereby advance our understanding of the solar drivers of space weather from the corona to the far helisphere by combining high resolution imaging and spectroscopy for the entire chromosphere and adjacent regions. IRIS will resolve in space, time, and wavelength the dynamic geometry from the chromosphere to the low temperature corona to shed much needed light on the physics of this magnetic interface region. So it looks like it kicked off in June 2010, and the IRIS mission uses a solar telescope and spectrograph to explore the solar chromospheres. So this is crucial. This is a crucial region for understanding energy transport into the solar wind and an archetype for stellar atmosphere. So, so I just continued on and looked at this Earth observation resources, and it's titled Sharing Earth Observation Resources. And you see these three tabs. They have satellite missions, they have airborne sensors, and then they have fed Earth observation. Now, just keep in mind, I started this journey just because I was looking up some more information about the Ishtar Gate. And so I'm looking at this and I was just like, wow, you know, that's a lot of satellites. And then I was noticing the dates, the launch dates of them. And of course they do have end dates, and then they have what they are, if they're Earth observation or non-Earth observation. And then I went on and the list was long and it goes on. And most are in the 21st century that were launched. And some are planned for the future, and some are planned for this year. We see some here, some there. And lastly, those two. And then I realized that was just the A's. And so I went on, and under the C's, it revealed Crew Dragon. Well, of course, we've been studying the book of Daniel and the beast and dragons in Revelation. And so I'm just continuing to take this little adventure, all stemming from trying to learn more about Babylon and the Gate of Ishtar. So I go to read, because each one of these alphabetical listings has these huge long write-ups behind each one, behind each link, behind each satellite. And so what was Crew Dragon? Well, the Crew Dragon was connected to SpaceX. And this was a prototype model that you see. I believe that's Elon Musk standing beside it. And some of you may have been more familiar with this. I know Bruce was aware that it was launched and so forth, so on. And matter of fact, it just supposedly landed August 2nd. Now, I'm not going to get into who believes in the globe, who believes in flat Earth, and we know all about NASA and all the stuff, the controversy and perspectives on that. I'm just sharing with all of you where I was led, and just kind of track with me and just kind of let me show you where it connects with like today. So it talked about on May 29th, 2014, SpaceX unveiled its Dragon V2 spacecraft, the next generation spacecraft designed to carry astronauts to Earth orbit and beyond. Dragon was designed from the beginning to carry humans, and the upgraded vehicle revealed today will be one of the safest, most reliable spacecraft ever flown. So that was noted in 2014. It's the evolution of SpaceX's successful Dragon capsule, which has now made 4 deliveries to the ISS, the International Space Station. CEO Elon Musk called the original Dragon a great, quote unquote, proof of concept, but proclaimed Dragon version 2 a spaceship for the 21st century. No longer will it parachute down into the ocean. Instead, it will use rockets to land with the precision of a helicopter anywhere on Earth. However, when they did land, they did use the parachutes. Okay, so also notice on your right-hand side of the screen, all of these satellites, and they all have, like I said, detailed write-ups on each one. And you see where I saw Crew Dragon right here. And so I just continued on and just kind of looked at it. And then it said here about the launch. So this was launched this year, May 30th, 2020. And it was up wherever it was, or if it was, whatever you believe may be the case, about 64 days. Now, what has been going on in the past 64 days and plus? I mean, we've been inundated with this COVID-19 business. We've had mandates of at first limiting distancing between people, social distancing, and wearing a mask and so forth, so on. Isn't that interesting that all of this up in the skies is taking place about the same time that social distancing is being enforced on the Earth? So it said, for the first time in history, NASA astronauts have launched from American soil in a commercially built and operated American Crew spacecraft on its way to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft carrying NASA astronauts Robert Behnken and Douglas Hurley lifted off at, of course, what time? Lifted off at 3:22 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Of course, we know 3:22 is associated with skull and bones. So I just made note of that. And see all these alphabets to the right? If you click on each one, you get another full list. So you see the magnitude of all the satellites encompassing the Earth, like a prison planet, like a major grid. And just wanted to share this because I don't know why y'all led me down this path, but he led me down this path, and so I went with it. Okay, so again, as I was reading, I couldn't help but notice in this particular paragraph, and I'm not going to read all of this to you, but let's see, it does say here, today a new era in human spaceflight begins as we once again launched American astronauts on American rockets from American soil on their way to the ISS, our national lab orbiting Earth. So then on this paragraph here toward the bottom, it says, it's difficult to put into words how proud I am of the people who got us here today, said Kathy Luters, NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager. When I think about all the challenges overcome from design and testing to paper reviews to working from home during a pandemic and balancing family demands with this critical mission, I am simply amazed at what the NASA and SpaceX teams have accomplished together. Now, I just found that very interesting that they wanted to make sure in this little write-up that they connected that and brought focus to this very important pandemic. Could it be, and I'm just putting it out there, and some of you may say, well, she's really reading a lot into it, and maybe so, I don't know. But I found it very interesting that they would take time to emphasize that the challenges, per se, of working from home during a pandemic. Could it be possible that this pandemic was pretty important to their mission in their Earth observations from space? I had heard that, and it's just hearsay. I'm saying it's just hearsay, but I had heard that the purpose of the 6-foot distancing was to be able to identify different people from other people. So if you're too close, you look like a glob, if you will, and if you're separated, then they have better identification of who they're looking at. I don't know. Are they trying to test out some of their equipment, some of their telescopes, some of their cameras? And is that why they're making sure that we know that they're acknowledging this pandemic that's taking place at the same time? Could it be that they're wanting it to extend so they can test out some of these satellites they're launching and see what they can note and who they can identify? I don't know, but again, I'm just taking you on the journey that that I was led to. So it said on July 17th, 2020, NASA confirmed July 17th that the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft with 2 astronauts on board will return to Earth from the International Space Station in early August. And of course, they didn't know where exactly it would splash down. It ended up splashing down in the Gulf, and from what is written up, and it did occur on August 2nd. Among other experiments operational in June were some familiar favorites. The Atmosphere-Space Interactions Monitor continued to observe a wide variety of phenomena in Earth's upper atmosphere. Data was also downlinked from the DOSIS 3D radiation monitor experiment, and the foam coarsening experiment continued to study the behavior of foams to help in the construction of lightweight and sturdy aerospace structures and new shielding systems for diagnostic radiology equipment in hospitals. Of course, they always want to bring out palatable reasons for doing all of these things. So these are just some photos that I included. The SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft undergoes final processing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. And it said to the right, assuming the Demo 1 launch goes according to plan and an in-flight abort test of the Crew Dragon spacecraft goes off without a hitch in the next few months, SpaceX could be ready to launch a 2-man crew to the station as soon as mid-June on the Demo 2 flight, followed by regular crew ferry flights to the orbiting complex by the end of the year. So, of course, they did apparently send 2, and they apparently did return. So this was just an animation of this process.
And there we have the Dragon in range of the space station cameras.
Station Houston, you have a go for capture.
The Canadarm2 will reach out and connect with the Dragon spacecraft. And capture is confirmed.
So I continued on and kind of was just noticing maybe the launches of things coming up in our near future. So I was looking at those and saw this WSF scheduled for 2023. And this one is dealing with weather system, follow-on microwave. So we see also the connection to the U.S. Air Force. The U.S. Air Force's future weather satellite plans are beginning to take shape, but are centered around enhancing information technology, cybersecurity, and small satellites in the near term, rather than a new generation of large, sophisticated spacecraft to replace the defense meteorological satellite program. So now, we know that our weather predictions and all of these things often come from all these satellites. I get that. But we also are very much aware of weather modification centers. We here in Louisiana are very much aware of it because we get all the weather modification from all the weather modification facilities in Texas, and it creates a lot of rain over here in Louisiana. So where is all this leading to? I don't know, but there is a lot of things happening up in the first and second heaven, if you will. And so it continued under this section, under the development status. It said May 18th, 2020. It's not easy to be able to conduct critical scientific design reviews while observing the health and safety rules of the COVID-19. but both elements were maintained at the United States Space Force's Space and Missile System Center's Weather System Follow-On Microwave Program. So again, we have this big emphasis on the safety rules of the COVID-19, which some of the safety rules is that 6-foot distancing emphasis. And again, that from what I had heard was to be able to identify different individuals. And we see this particular satellite, WSF-M, is a Department of Defense operational low Earth orbit environmental satellite system that provides continuous space-based sensing of the terrestrial environment. Well, I'm not going to go into all that technological language, but I did want to just share that. Yes, Sharon?
If you notice the date on here, this is May 18th, 2020, right?
Right.
And let me see, I was reading it, 2020, so May, June. It's like they knew about it ahead of time. They knew about it ahead of time, but there was something else I was going to bring up about the reason they want us distance apart is because AI can't recognize a group of people. They can only recognize one person. Right. And they're doing facial recognition because eventually we're not going to have phones or anything. It'll always be by the face that they are, that when people turn into AIs or whatever, they will communicate from their bodies. So, I mean, I know this sounds like way weird stuff, but it's there.
Yeah, you know, and it does sound like way weird stuff. And I'm not sure why y'all led me down this path, but I went ahead and rolled with it. And of course, like Carol Ann had noted, and I had not picked up on this before either, until she noted this to me, was the number 19 in our alphabet. A is 1 and I is the 9th letter of our alphabet. So COVID AI, artificial intelligence.
So that's why they want the 6 foot apart, because they haven't, AI hasn't figured out how do I have to get that one picture. I can't get if they're all together. They don't know how to do that yet. You know, a group of people.
Right. Yes. And then,
and y'all could have led you down this path for the fact of bringing forth truth, because nothing, remember the word says nothing will be concealed that won't be revealed. And a lot of this that you see is studio
generated.
Yes, or green screen. So, I mean, there's so much that we didn't know, like even, I don't know, but now we're starting to pick up how they're doing things. They do things underwater for the flotation. I mean, they do them in, like they're all in here right now in this little thing. You know, that's just right here on Earth. You know, they're just, and when you say space, they need recognition for their science because they don't believe in Yahuwah. So,
right.
So they want science to get all the credit.
Right.
They don't want our Father to get anything, but space is basically within the dome. I mean, they don't know how far up they can go. I think they do, but and only one reason was because of what Hillary said in one of her speeches when she was going around. She says, we haven't broke through it yet, but we've cracked it into a million pieces. So I'm not quite sure what she meant by that, but I had a feeling it was because they were trying to break through the dome or something. And anyway, that was just something that I remember her saying.
Right. And so, and I'm showing y'all this photo just to, again, emphasize how they are making sure in these write-ups that I just came across, out of all these write-ups, the couple, and I just barely scratched the surface. I mean, barely. But out of all these write-ups, I bring up a couple of write-ups that they make sure to emphasize this COVID pandemic that they call it. And then lo and behold, this photo op of Doug Hurley left in blue jumpsuit and Bob Benkin in the blue jumpsuit at right in a helicopter in Pensacola after they landed on the Gulf of Mexico. And then you see the crew, the Dragon crew, and then you make sure that they have these masks on to, once again, it's connecting somehow. I'm not sure how, but it seems to be connected. The pandemic or plandemic along with this launch. Yes, I see a couple of people have their hands raised. I'm not sure who was first, but go ahead. You might be muted.
This is Maxie. You're talking to me?
Yes, Maxie.
Something that happens here in Kansas is during the time that the pandemic virus took place, which was about the time of the Passover, for 2 months, every Tuesday and every Thursday, there were, the sky became covered with, what do you call those? Chemtrails. And every Tuesday and every Thursday, and then the next day I would feel congested. Those were directly related to the pandemic. And then something else that I noticed happening is that when we traveled into Colorado, see, our weather comes over the mountains there and then comes rolling on into Kansas. And the planes were flying higher and they were seeding the clouds. So they were seeding the storm fronts. So they're doing a lot of controlling of weather. And they're doing a lot up there, you said, up in the heavens.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Maxie, for that feedback. Is there anyone else raising their hand? Because my screen is full and I cannot see any person's hand, but if there is, just go ahead and make your comment before I continue.
No one else's hand is raised, Libby. I looked.
Oh, okay. Nobody else? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is just under that one tab, satellite missions, and this one was IXPE, and it says the mission slated for launch in 2020 and 2021 will cost $188 million. This figure includes the cost of the launch and so forth, so on. The goal of IXPE mission is to expand understanding of high energy astrophysical processes and sources in support of NASA's first science objective in astrophysics, or discover how the universe works. Well, Yahweh knows how the universe works. And we see, we see a lot of pride associated with this. Look what we have done. And so we see that pride rising in our day and age. So I just made a question mark here. How did we get on this rabbit trail? And like I shared with y'all, I was just looking up the Gate of Ishtar. That's all I was doing. I was just looking up the Gate of Ishtar. and then I was reading that part about the author of the piece and saw the connection, and I put in here, should I say the Babylon connection, and it talked about a lot about the area in space, if you will, that is the interface. It makes it sound like an interface, a portal, a connection. And anyone that has heard or studied about CERN, again, it is, believed that those that worship Satan or those that worship the dragon is working toward making that connection. And then I started thinking about, since my focus was on this space and all these satellites and all this stuff, I thought about President Trump's Space Force. And honestly, I am so much into Yahweh's word, I really don't keep up with a lot of things happening on a day-to-day basis. I try to just hear enough to kind of be aware of what's going on. But he had allocated $738 billion to Space Force. And honestly, I did not realize that Space Force is considered the 6th branch of the U.S. Armed Services. Maybe y'all did. I somehow missed that. And so it said when President Trump signed a $738 billion defense spending bill on Friday, which I'm not sure of the exact date, he officially created the Space Force. It's the 6th branch of the U.S. Armed Services and the first new military service since the Air Force was created in 1947. I said, oh, okay. It's the 6th branch of the U.S. Armed Services and the first new military service since the Air Force was created in 1947. Space, quote unquote, space is the world's newest war-fighting domain. President Trump said during the signing ceremony, amid grave threats to our national security, American superiority in space is absolutely vital, and we're leading, but we're not leading by enough, but very shortly we'll be leading by a lot. And I believe someone may have had their hand up.
Yes, Libby, that was me. Yes, he did do that, but if you're familiar with the Prophet Tom Horn, that wrote that book I'm mailing out to you, he was the one that said, it's in the book of Revelation, something worm, I forget, woodworm.
Wormwood. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he said that he had spoken, he said somebody had spoken to the president about that in 2029, there is a big astronaut that's going to hit. And he said he doesn't think y'all's going to stop. He didn't use the word y'all, but he doesn't believe y'all's going to stop it. He's going to allow it to happen and come and hit. It's going to hit California and most of Mexico. And so he said it's going to have such a devastating ripple effect. And I think President Trump is trying to get the Space Force together to stop this from coming and hitting our Earth. But he won't be successful.
It's very possible, yeah. And we've heard chatter about asteroids and wormwood, and we also know that Satan
He says
knows.
April 13th, 2029. If it keeps on traveling the way it's traveling, that is the predicted date.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very possible that, and there has been a lot of chatter about asteroid and asteroid storms and stuff. And there's also been chatter, and I'm saying chatter because that's all I can say that it is. But we do have some strong possibilities that when paradise burned in in California, there were signs that looked like there was something else at play, like direct energy weapons, which if they want to say an asteroid's coming upon the Earth and that they want to simultaneously use the DEW weapon, the direct energy weapon, they could, just to test it out, do whatever. I'm not sure, but you know, there's a lot of strange things coming upon this land. So, it goes on. I'm not going to read all of it, but it says about 16,000 Air Force active duty and civilian personnel are being assigned to the Space Force. There's still a lot to figure out, including the force's uniform logo and even its official song. You know, give me a break. You know, you're going to be spending $738 billion and you're concerned with all these big topics to figure out. The force's uniform logo and its official song. So anyway, it said the Space Force will fall within the Department of the Air Force, but after 1 year, it will have its own representation on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, according to the text of the law that created it. That makes it similar in structure to the Marine Corps, which is a part of the Department of the Navy, but has its own seat on the Joint Chiefs. So here we go, midway down, it says, it's worth pointing out a few things the Space Force will not do. Quote, it's not about putting military service members in space. It has nothing to do with NASA. It's not about protecting Earth from asteroids or aliens, said Harrison. So, and then it goes on further at the last paragraph. Russia and China may be interested in interfering with that flow of information, she said, but she's concerned that the way Trump described space as a war-fighting domain could be provocative to those countries. So, so I just wanted to share with y'all the journey that I was led down while preparing for this session tonight. And I'm not sure where what Yahweh will do with that information among us, but it's just food for thought. And I have all those links if people are interested in looking into that more. And of course, next week, we're going to look at Daniel and the lion's den and so forth. And I believe a couple people have their hands raised.
Yes. Yes.
And Cheryl.
Okay.
Two things. You said it was the 6th. What are the 6?
Of armed services.
Yes. What are the 6?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can name them all. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Space Force, what else, y'all?
National Guard.
National Guard.
No, not National Guard. Coast Guard.
Coast Guard.
Okay.
Navy SEALs.
Okay, Navy SEALs. Okay, all right.
Okay, that
and
was
you
one
too.
question. That was one question. The other comment is the United States of America has an Ashgar as a gate. That is the Liberty, Lady of Liberty.
Wow.
Are you talking about the Statue of Liberty?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I got that.
She is copied after Ashtar, and she has the 6 or 7 rays, sun rays. And almost all of the refugees have come through her ports.
Yeah, Mother Goddess worship. Facing the rising sun. Yeah, sun god worship.
Yes.
That's
so
correct.
United States is a Babylon too, with Ashtar as a gate.
Right. It's Mystery Babylon practically encompasses probably all 7 continents. It has its tentacles running all over the earth, and it's a conglomerate beast. And we see the beast rising, but we have no fear because also Israel, the one new man, is rising, and greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. Okay, the next person with your hand up. Sister Cynthia.
Yes, what I wanted to point out is these satellites that they're releasing in the sky. When you look at them at nighttime, they look like stars in the sky. And from my understanding, they've already made a moon and a sun. And the way I understand it is, it's supposed to be dark and the cloud and the moon thing's supposed to come out. And, I'm just wondering if the governments, the presidents, Congress, whoever you want to call them, if they've made all this to distract us when the time is supposed to be dark and the moon ain't supposed to come out, they've already got a moon to, to represent the old moon that Yah is supposed to take away. And these satellites in the sky, they look just like stars. But if you look at them real close, you can kind of tell that they're not stars. But you have to get, like a telescope. And yeah, so, Yah brought you to this for a reason. And this could be, them trying to act like these satellites that they got in the sky are actually stars. I just wanted to point that out. I'm not saying that, that's going to happen. I'm just saying it could possibly, because I live like 45 minutes from CERN, and I can look up in the sky and there's like 7 of them right above me.
Wow.
And yes, and every night around 2:30, if the skies are clear, around 2:30, it'll let out a dust. And then the dust, when it settles, it's like a yellow. And I don't know if they're trying to make it look like it's pollen, but this isn't pollen that's settling from the skies. And it's ever since this COVID-19's been going on, I have been having to take Benadryl like crazy. It is really messing with my allergies. And they let this out around the end of January, the beginning of February, that they released these satellites and they started letting this dust come out. And I just wanted to bring it to your guys' attention, what's going on around here. There's a reason why Yah brought you to this. And so I just wanted to let you know what I've seen over here, me living so close to CERN. And another thing is they're starting to release the workers from CERN that they don't need no more. They're just keeping the scientists to finish their experiment or to finish their mission. So they're actually letting go the other people that was, building certain things for this collider. And I just thought I'd give you guys, the information that I knew.
Yeah, Cynthia, that's awesome. And, I was contemplating that too, that again, it was very interesting, the correlation between all this COVID stuff and when it started happening, and how the flights were restricted. At the same time, we have all these launches of satellites and stuff. So it's almost like they didn't want, they wanted full control of the airwaves. and the air, so it wouldn't interfere with whatever they were launching in preparation for Space Force or whatever. And then these other things that you mentioned are so pertinent, and we know that the enemy will be bringing a strong delusion, and they sometimes have to have these things floating in the atmosphere to create what are they called, Carol Ann, holograms or whatever, to make it look like Yahweh's returning. Just don't know. And I believe there's some other hands up.
I was going to say that when COVID came through in April and May, I had that congestion, and a friend of mine suggested that I drink 1 quart of water with a tablespoon of vinegar, and then through the rest of the day drink 3 pints of water with a pinch of borax in each one throughout the day, and that cleared up everything I had.
Interesting.
So it's something to try. It won't hurt you.
Right. I believe there's a certain type of borax. I'm not familiar with it, but I believe from what I've heard, there's a certain type of borax. But yeah, some strange allergies that people are having to deal with. Absolutely.
Yes, it has to be a food grade, Libby.
Oh, okay. Is there someone else that has their hand up?
It was Cheryl, Cynthia, and Maxie were the 3 hands up.
Okay.
Yeah, I did it. And I just wanted to make a comment that you said last week we need to put our seatbelts on. Well,
Yeah.
this week we need full harnesses.
Yeah, this week we took off, huh?
Full 6-point harness.
Absolutely. Okay, Cheryl and Cynthia, did you have your hand raised and have something else you wanted to share?
No, I don't know how to get it down. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. I lowered it for you.
Cynthia has her last name up, by the way. I don't know if she knows about what to take that off.
The what?
Cynthia has her last name up, and it. I don't know if she knew.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure in the recording. I usually cover up our faces and stuff like that anyway. So if I see somebody's last name, I can blur it out as well.
Okay.
So I'll make sure to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Libby.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And so anyway, well, that was tonight's session.
Can we take our seatbelts off? Can we take
the
our
writing's
seatbelts
on the
off right
wall.
now?
You better put on that full armor.
We're gonna go for another ride.
Yeah. Yeah, the writing is on the wall. Keep on your full armor of Yahweh. Fear not, for he is with us. Be not dismayed, for he is our Elohim. He will strengthen us. He will help us. He will uphold us with his righteous right hand. And, you know, we have him, and we see how the enemy is actually fearing, because they know he's coming back. They know he's coming back. Yes, Danon?
This is really good. And I just chomping at the bit. There's so much to talk about from the Statue of Liberty all the way to everything else you've showed in this last application. I believe with all my heart that the wise are going to get wiser, and we're going to understand, because we're popping the code. And this is why we're reading and studying. And this is just really good, Libby. The things you've brought out. Mystery Babylon is just being exposed before us. So we're going to understand why these things are happening, and hopefully be able to translate to the fish what's going on when we're lit up on that day, that they'll know we got something. they're going to look at us and they're going to know that we have something. And they're going to know us by our love. They're going to know us by our love. And I'll just leave it at that.
Right. And, it's very possible, as we study also the book of Revelation and understanding about the two witnesses, it's very possible that some of us will be here being the two witnesses, and he's going to give us dreams and visions, just like in the book of Daniel. He's going to let his people know what's going on, and he's going to reveal things in whatever way he chooses. Even while you're looking at an article on the gate of Ishtar, he's going to send you somewhere else. Yes, Sharon?
Has anybody ever seen Star Galactica, I think is the name of it? It's about a 10 football field. It looks like a blimp. I haven't been able to find it again. They like to hide things. I think it was William Mount brought it out one time. It was huge, and it looks like, ever seen one of those streamline where it's metal type thing? It was like round like that, a rounded ship. It was a spaceship, and they had it about 1.5 years ago that he had put the picture up. And I was just wondering if anybody could research that. I think it was, do you remember that, April? I think it was called Star Galactica or something like that.
I barely remember it. Yeah.
Huh?
I barely remember it, but not enough.
That thing was huge.
Yes, it was.
The man standing next to it was the size of an ant. And that thing was like 10 football fields long, maybe more. It was huge. And I haven't found it since. So I was just wondering if Jason was looking maybe for it. Or Dane. Assignment. But it's real huge, and they had just finished it and get ready to put it up. And then I heard what's his name, the president, talk about this what does he call that? The army or the something military in the space or something?
Space Force, right?
Space Force. Mm-hmm. Right after that, then he comes up with Space Force. So it's kind of like it's a secretive type thing, but yet William Mount seems to find a lot of things that, or say a lot of things that people can't believe. But if you look hard enough, it's like those things you can't believe. It's because we just don't know. Anyway, just thought I'd.
Right, and one thing we do know is that they're much further ahead on all of these things than we can imagine. They're 50 or more years ahead of us, probably more. I've heard people say 50, but I believe they're probably much further ahead of us. But we know the Creator. We know the Creator of the universe, and so we have Him. And if we have Him, we have all that we need. And we can watch men try to figure out how the universe works, but we know the one that created the universe. And so, it doesn't get any better than that. So anyway, that was tonight's session, y'all. And I pray it was a blessing to you all. I pray you're, more clear on the kings between Babylon and then transferring to Medo-Persia, and you're starting to own where these kings were and what they were doing, and about the city of Babylon and the river running through it. I mean, it's good to focus and take our time and go through this stuff So we'll remember these things. It's very, very interesting. And that was prime real estate. That's why they had so many wars, because of that. So anyway, well, I enjoyed tonight, and Kim, thank you for reading and everything and helping me out with that. That kind of helps, share the process, because helps. I don't have scripted notes, so I kind of like to look where I'm at and what are we talking about and what do I need to mention and that sort of thing. So it's a big help, and I appreciate that. Okay.
I just wanted to say something to Kim.
Yeah.
As far as her reading, she has a beautiful reading voice.
She does. I agree.
She ought to do that as a profession.
Yes, I agree, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're
And
very welcome, and it's well deserved.
I
yes,
love to
indeed.
read. So thank you.
Yes, indeed. So let's close in prayer. Would someone like to close us in prayer?
I will, Abby.
Okay, April, thank you.
Heavenly Father, it's been so delightful to meet with you and your word tonight. Thank you for all the rich things that are locked in there for our learning. And I pray that as we go through this week, your Holy Spirit will guide us and lead us. Send us the visions and dreams that we might walk more carefully in these last days and be aware of how the enemy's working. Thank you for Libby and everyone on this panel. I pray for a blessing upon each and every one of us as we sleep tonight, as we go through the rest of the week, and as we get ready for your Sabbath. We ask you for comfort and your angels in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Amen.
Hey, praise y'all. Praise y'all. Okay, well, good night, everybody. Save your chat. And if you cannot save chat, I'll be glad to send it to you. If you just let me know, I'll send it to you, Mary, and I'm going to send it to Mary Beth and whoever
I
else.
can't save the chat either.
Oh, okay. You want me to send it to you too, Cheryl?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Me too. Okay, I may just send it to everybody because I'm not sure. I'll just send it to everybody.
That would probably be easier.
Yeah, that will be. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all. I think we've covered everything. Well, good night,
Okay,
everybody.
shalom.
Oh,
Shalom. Shalom,
Thank you.
everybody.
Shabbat shalom, you guys.
Good night.
Shabbat shalom. Good to hear from you, Danon.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this was a great presentation, and it just verifies that Yahuwah is bringing everything to light. Calendar, what the pedophiles are doing with the Jeff Epstein and Bill Clinton now's on the scene. Yahweh's just bringing it all out. We're living in the last decade. We're living in the last decade. No question.
Yes.
Thank you, Libby.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay.
Lifting the skirt on evil.